There is a rich aviation history in Georgia.
The goal, and if you look at the mission statement from the TCSG or any of the 22 colleges, you'll hear the word workforce, and they take that very seriously.
We have the moniker of being the oldest and longest continually serving aviation maintenance training facility in North America.
The overriding feeling I had once I started going to class, get in, get engaged, or get out.
Welcome to Talent Pipeline Georgia, a podcast brought to you by the Technical College System of Georgia. Each month, we bring business leaders, faculty, and students together to explore how TCSG's 22 colleges and 600-plus programs drive workforce development, fuel economic growth, and create pathways to success. Whether you're building a stronger team, shaping policy for the future, or preparing for the next step in your education, TCSG is your partner in progress. Visit us at tcsg.edu for more details. The Technical College System of Georgia. Meaningful careers start here. You might not realize it, but Georgia is soaring when it comes to aviation. With over 800 aerospace companies, including industry giants like Gulfstream Aerospace, Lockheed Martin, and Delta, the state has become a national powerhouse in aerospace manufacturing, engineering, and maintenance. Let's break it down. Aerospace products are Georgia's #1 export, totaling $12.6 billion in 2024. The aerospace industry is responsible for a $57.5 billion economic impact. It's the second largest manufacturing sector in the state, and it supports over 200,000 jobs across Georgia. And at the heart of preparing the skilled workforce behind this thriving sector is the Technical College System of Georgia. With cutting-edge training in aviation maintenance, avionics, precision manufacturing, and more, TCSG's colleges are building the pipeline of talent that keeps Georgia's aviation industry flying high. First up, we'll hear from South Georgia Technical College President John Watford. What inspired South Georgia Tech to maintain its legacy as the oldest continually serving aviation maintenance training facility in North America, and how has that history shaped the institution today?
Sure. South Georgia Tech, we have the moniker of being the oldest and longest continually serving aviation maintenance training facility in North America because our grounds, our campus is located where a former World War I Army Air Corps training base was located. So since 1917, aviation maintenance has been taught here at South Georgia Tech continuously. And incidentally, at the end of World War I, Charles Lindbergh came here to this campus and purchased his first plane. They were selling the airplanes, Army surplus, that's still in the crates. And so he stayed here on these grounds for a couple of weeks while they actually built his plane, and he soloed for the first time on these grounds. So that's one of our claims to fame. But in the Second World War, this was also Army Air Corps training base then as well, and the Royal Air Force was trained here. The skies over Great Britain were too dangerous because Germany had already occupied France, and France, of course, was right across the English Channel from the British Isles. So they would ship cadets over here to America and bring them down by train from Canada to South Georgia. And there were training bases, of course, one here in Americus and one in Dothan, Alabama, one in Macon. It was under the Arnold scheme. And so we have that to add to our history. But yes, since 1948, we started out in 1948 as the South Georgia Trade and Vocational School. And we're the second oldest. The first one was the North Georgia Trade and Vocational School. North Georgia Tech and South Georgia Tech are still the only two that have on-campus dorm housing. So we have old roots that go back.
How has the partnership with Delta Airlines influenced the career opportunities and the earning potential for South Georgia Tech students in aviation and electronics programs?
Yeah, those are great questions, especially in today's market. Yes, we do have a relationship with Delta where they interview and hire students. They even allow us to bypass their normal portal for applications with both of our aviation and our electronics students because of the partnership that we have. Students still have to go through the process with Delta, don't get me wrong, but they're given a priority when they apply. They also come down and meet with our students. They talk to them about what a career is like. And I have heard over the past years when they come talk to our students, they tell our students that they can expect a salary exceeding $100,000 a year after 3 years serving as an aviation maintenance tech with Delta. So that's an impressive salary for less than 2 years of post-secondary education. And now you'll have to work, but no matter what you do, you're going to have to work. If you're a college president, you're going to have to work. If you work for McDonald's, you're going to have to work. So it's nice to work and earn a decent check and support your family and have a comfortable living.
How does South Georgia Tech ensure financial accessibility for students in the aviation maintenance program? And what support systems are in place for those facing financial challenges?
Well, let me say up front that for Georgia residents, the aviation maintenance program is a high demand career initiative program, which means that tuition is covered by the Hope Grant if the student is eligible for the Hope Grant. And keep in mind that this is a Hope Grant, not Hope Scholarship. Hope Grant meaning you don't have to maintain 3.0 average to keep it. Now, aviation is a very challenging program, so you are going to have to study and apply yourself. But the cost is minimal. We charge $107 per tuition credit hour. The full-fledged diploma program is 90 credit hours, but you have a lot of options because aviation maintenance, you can get an aviation maintenance certificate, where you don't take the core classes, but you can still sit for the airframe and power plant license with the FAA, or you can take just the airframe or just the power plant, which are even less credit hours. So there's lots of options. Finances are never a challenge. And when a student comes to us with financial challenges and financial aid doesn't meet all of their needs, even though we buy the books for the students, there may be a few fees they have to purchase or have to pay for out of pocket, but we will work with the student. We have an excellent foundation that we have some strong supporters and donors for our aviation maintenance program. So we don't want anybody to be put off by a financial challenge to come to South Georgia Tech.
Thank you, John, for those insightful remarks on South Georgia Tech's rich heritage and its commitment to aviation maintenance education. Learning about the institution's historical milestones, its impactful partnership with Delta Airlines, and the robust support it provides to students was truly inspiring. Now, building on that, let's turn to Director of Aviation at Chat Tech, Alan Bersowitz. Alan, what makes your aviation program at Chat Tech stand out from other programs, and how does being located on an airport enhance the student experience?
What makes us stand out? We built a program together that furnishes all the tools for the students. So typically when you go into any kind of maintenance or aviation maintenance, and any one of the other TCSG schools around the state, and even AIM, they charge that $60,000 for tuition, you have to purchase an additional $4,000 to $6,000 worth of tools. In the Aviation Academy, we provide all the tools for the students. They're all top-notch, top-quality tools, Snap-on tools. We have a program in there. It's called Build-A-Base. Snap-on designed it for us, laid out the toolboxes and the tools, and the students will come in and use the tools, and then they'll leave. Now, they're also available. They're allowed to purchase tools through Snap-on at a discount, 60% discount, just like any one of the other schools. So we have 3 of those on campus, along with all the other tools that we provide for the students. We're actually on the airport. Out there, we have a 3-acre site. It's a 3-story building, 60,000 square feet, about 11,000 square foot aircraft hangar. So we're right there. Students get to watch airplanes take off. They get to interact with the airplanes. We have 5 airplanes that we have in our program right now, and looking to pick up more. But being on an airport gives the students a feel of what it's like to be around airplanes and actively be at an airport setting.
Thanks, Alan, for shedding light on how adaptable and forward-thinking the TCSG system has become in meeting workforce needs. Now, shifting gears, let's hear from Jason Tanner, the Executive Vice President of Instruction at Chattahoochee Tech. Jason, how did the aviation program at Chattahoochee come together, and what role did partnerships and community support play in its development?
So before we even had construction underway, we had hired Alan as the program director. And then within about a year of his hiring, we had hired 2 full-time faculty. So experts in their field, getting that curriculum, program manual, the FAA paperwork going well before the facility. So there was a lot of investment of state and then college dollars for the payroll. We've been very fortunate. The legislative cycle in Georgia the last few years has provided some extra funding for aviation colleges. Not quite as much to Chattahoochee because we didn't have the enrollment, to have some of it based on, but that did allow some of that investment, great investment. That facility we're in, it's a $30 million campus and building that's self-contained. So heavy investment there. That included the funding for the furnishings, the fixtures, the equipment. So altogether, it's over a $30 million package. Huge buy-in from Paulding County, the county that we're in. The county commissioners really pushed. The legislative delegation from Paulding County really lobbied to have Chattahoochee become that next part of the technical system, the next one of the technical colleges teaching aviation and in their county at their regional airport. So the airport has been a phenomenal partner. We had an advisory committee ahead of time. So we have people from Delta on our advisory committee, American Airlines, the small maintenance shop that's at the Paulding Airport is on our advisory committee. Epps Aviation, lots of people in the metro area were invested years before we had a student with their time. We've gotten donations from places like Delta. I mean, even things like you think about when you go and you take a commercial flight, that row of seats, again, because we didn't have anything, anything they could give us was very valuable. Connections to places where we could buy used aircraft. We already had a few aircraft purchased that we were storing at the airport before we had our own building. So it's really been, and then our partners within the technical college system, Georgia Northwestern, Savannah Tech, Central Georgia Tech. I'm going to leave some people out, but those three were really helpful because they've had long-standing programs. They let us borrow equipment. We borrowed equipment from Central Georgia Tech as we got going to learn about stuff, the curriculum, part of the FAA certification while we waited on our own. It's really been like all hands in. I mean, anybody we've asked for guidance, advice was more than willing to help.
How is your program working with companies like Lockheed to prepare students for the aviation industry? And what makes this partnership so effective?
So it's been interesting. We had a plan at the airport in our facility to teach aviation maintenance, the part that's FAA certified, that is going to be perhaps the most needed employees, and you're going to get the most buy-in from those larger commercial airlines. But it takes the longest. It's the longest program. You got to get FAA certified. We have a facility where we also teach avionics. We teach aircraft structures. We teach aircraft upholstery. We reached out to Lockheed and told them, we know you all don't hire a lot of aviation mechanics, that FAA certified part. We've got this building where we're doing the structures part right now. How could we help you all with that more manufacturing production side, not the mechanic side? And so, and they're in our service area. They're in Cobb County. They're relatively close to the campus out there in the aviation facility. So they started a cohort this past fall. They're college students. They're taking the aircraft structures. They're taking about 1.5 of the first 2 certificates and structures. It's about 21 credit hours on a compressed schedule. So we're mirroring their 4 10-hour days that they do in the production facility with this group alongside our kind of normal structure students. So they get screened ahead of time, background checks, those kind of things, because at the midpoint of that 10-week term, 8 or 10 weeks, they actually go they get a contingent employment offer, and they spend the last 2 weeks of the term with us at Lockheed as employees doing hands-on training. So that worked in the fall. We had the first group. That was sort of proof of concept. This spring semester, we had the second cohort do the first half of spring. The third cohort is enrolled right now. So we're up to the third cohort of students who are maximizing that facility we have. Yes, aviation maintenance is going to be a showcase, that FAA certified program. But in the meantime, we have traditional structure students going through and these Lockheed structures going through that are taking that Technical College System of Georgia curriculum and essentially using Lockheed as the examples of those competencies. So it's great for the students. And if we have a student that's like, I don't know about doing it on that accelerated schedule or working for Lockheed, whatever it is, hey, you can do our standard version. These students, though, we're recruiting these groups. You're doing the Lockheed version. And so that third group's underway. We'll have a fourth one this summer. We'll have 2 more in the fall. So we're trying to help all of that aviation industry. I hate to say but not just that kind of commercial industry or that regional airport. All aspects in Georgia. We have manufacturers in Georgia. For us, it's Lockheed. For someone like Savannah, it's Gulfstream. They're building aircraft here. Let's maximize what we can do, and that's what we're doing in that building. We're essentially offering any avenue into the aviation industry that you can do as a 2-year college student. We're doing.
How does Georgia's aviation education and training compare to other states, and what steps are being taken to expand access across the state?
Well, and again, when I came first into this, that were some of the comparisons I made. I picked some states like Texas is bigger than us, has more people, Florida, California, perhaps some more military installations, those kind of things. In my mind, though, it was that this should be that aspirational thing. Georgia can compete with these places that are bigger, that have more people. We'll do it with our 10 or 11 million people. We don't need 20, million in Georgia. But I looked at a state like Washington State and was like, that's a little more similar. We ought to have that aviation imprint in educational, settings like they do. And so part of it was, not one for one, but pretty fair comparisons. But we are a military friendly state. We have these installations, including in our service area, much less the other more active installations we have in Georgia. Georgia needs, and having that at the Hartsfield Airport is that other connection of, we've got this busiest airport in the world. Are we doing enough to train the people that would work there? And I would say we're doing a better job of it now. And I'm glad that Chattahoochee's a part. I'm glad that Atlanta Tech has their FAA certification back. I'm glad that we have some other sister schools looking into doing this. There's 22 colleges in Georgia, and there's 7 technical colleges. We're up to 7 or 8 of us that are doing this. How do we get it to half of us? That kind of thing. How do we make this more accessible across the geography of the state, for students?
Thank you, Jason, for showcasing the incredible opportunities at the Aviation Academy and how hands-on experiences are shaping the future of aviation professionals. Finally, let's hear from South Georgia Tech alumnus and TCGS board member Dan Lingenfelter. Dan, how does the technical college system of Georgia adapt to meet the needs of businesses? And can you share an example of how this flexibility has made a real impact?
So large corporations, and the TCSG has gotten a lot lighter on its feet in the last 20 years. In other words, the courses were set, the number of students they could take was set, what they were going to teach was set. Over the last several years, if a manufacturer or an airline or anybody, any business in Georgia that comes to them and says, hey, we need training on this particular item, the TCSG will make every effort, and they are usually very successful at it, to get that course curriculum in place at a college that's convenient to that business, so that we can help them with whatever their problem is. I'm going to give you a real good example of that. But Delta Airlines went to West Georgia Tech and they said, we've got all this new, what we call ground support equipment coming online at Delta, baggage tugs, baggage loaders, super tugs. If you're ever flying and you look out the window and you see all this equipment laying around on the ramp, these transporters and things, Delta said, we need a course to teach our ground support equipment mechanics how to work on them. It's new. We need to figure out how to get them trained on it. And West Georgia Tech put a program down there and together down there. And Delta was shipping, busloads of people down there for this program. And it wasn't a real long, drawn out program, but it got them the training they needed. And of course, Delta was willing to pay a lot of money to do that. So it was good for the colleges and good for the people working there. So that's one of the better examples I can think of where a corporation needed something, a technical college reacted and gave them what they needed and got them on the way. And so when I say the TCSG has become much lighter on its feet, that's what I mean. They're much more flexible than they were when I went. It was like, this is what we got, take it or leave it. Now they say, you need this, we'll figure it out. And that's one of the great things about it. Greg Dozier, the commissioner of the TCSG, he's very broad-minded, and he looks at our technical colleges as a supplier of labor, a supplier of educated and trained workers, not just for the state of Georgia, but on more of a global view. He thinks we should be able to train workers to work in any state or any place in the world. And I agree with him on that. There's no reason that the technical college system of Georgia couldn't be the leader in supplying educated, trained workers for any field, whether it be in the United States or beyond.
Thanks for listening to Talent Pipeline Georgia, a podcast brought to you by the Technical College System of Georgia. Visit us at tcsg.edu for more details. The Technical College System of Georgia. Meaningful careers start here.